Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Mr. 4 here. We are back again for another Legion era deck. Back to back with Vowing being the odd deck in the works. Today we are doing Musketeers. So generally Musketeers they were the first, deck for V Neo Nectar. Then they had a nice little other deck that was also Musketeers. And then they created these guys, and then they reprinted the former boss. And the thing was that the former boss was actually the main boss, and now the budget boss is now the main boss. So, yep, the World of Plants is very irritating as long as you're not Asha. But today we are going to be doing this deck, which actually is not that bad if you ask me. It's quite affordable. Most of it comes out of the box of Recall because they reprint so much easily accessible stuff. It's not even funny. And the rest of the deck is all very cheap. So, of course, because the deck is so cheap, I could not afford it. So today we have Fade of Off.
Hello.
So he will be going through this. He was scarred by Musketeers in 0, that's why he's building the deck. So let's start with our grade 3s. We play 4 of the black girl and 4 of the red girl. Oh wait, no, and we also have our Hue Guardians.
Yes, of course. Because this deck actually does run Hue
Guardians. This deck does run Hue Guardians. So as you can see from our lineup of recall bosses, not just for not just across the internet but also on our channel, we cover quite a few that has heals and normal heals and actual Hue Guardians. So it's really a player preference in my opinion. I'm not gonna really break down the Hue Guards. It's quite obvious what they do at this point. They just stop early aggression and they become real bad in the late game, but who really cares? Let's start with the boss.
Okay, so the main boss of the deck has now become, after switching from Cecilia to Martina, now it's Vera. So Lycoris Musketeer Vera has 2 skills. First skill is very simple. It's Counter Blast 1. You set 2 rear guards. You put 2 cards from your drop zone to the bottom of the deck. You say, haha, field drop for Legion. Field drop for Legion. Then you look at top 5 cards of your deck, and then you call 2, and then you shuffle your deck. If you call 2 Musketeers, you gain +1 drive. And you'll realize why the +1 drive is important later. But overall, being able to reach triple drive is honestly really good for a deck that pumps out so many good columns, so you can push for even higher numbers if you get triggers. But of course, that is just down to luck. But her second skill is honestly the more threatening one. If your opponent is grade 3 or higher and you have the Legion mate, which is Lycoris Musketeer Sol, on your front row rear guard circle, whenever you get a trigger, so let's say you get a heal trigger, the power is given to your entire front row, so not just your vanguard. So which means that you can basically turn all of your triggers into front triggers, which is very, very, very scary for Neo Nectar because, calling down rear guards near Neo Nectar is like putting butter on bread. It is not that difficult, and honestly, if your rear guard columns are empty in Neo Nectar, something is very wrong. So yeah, so overall, Vera is a very, very strong addition to the Musketeer deck. She adds a lot of pressure with the triple drive as well as giving triggers to the whole front row. And you also realize that you don't actually have to get the triggers during your battle phase. There are ways to get this second effect off during your main phase, which we will cover later. Now for the second boss, we have Peony Musketeer Martina. So Martina came out during the Arboros Dragon era for Neo Nectar. She was a secondary boss for this deck, but mainly we'll be using her for her second skill. But if you do have to ride her, she has a not so bad first skill, which is you Soul Blast 1 and you retire 1. You look at the top 5 cards of your deck, and you call 1 and then you shuffle. So it is just generic filling up for board. It's not the best thing ever because it only calls 1, and then it doesn't gain anything else after that, so it's just a vanilla. But its second skill is probably the reason why most people will still run her, is that when she's caught from deck for that turn, she gets 5k and 1 crit. So she's an 18k double crit attacker, and you can call her as early as turn 2. Wow, that's
really good.
Yeah, so being able to hit for 2 crit on turn 2, and potentially, and then if you go second on your turn 3, you can even pump her with even more triggers due to the Vera's effect.
The funny thing is that she's meant to be like, she was the second Musketeer boss, but yet her rearguard skill is what keeps her in the deck.
Yeah.
Just an on-spawn 18k with a crit is no joke, especially when you're in turn 2. Like, people are like, oh, Igloo is broken at 19k. Yeah, but it's 1 crit, just take the damage. This thing is 2 crit,
Yeah.
The crit pressure is honestly on Musketeers way faster than DOTX if you whiff, because these are all built-in crits. DOTX needs to pray for yellow color, so honestly, yeah, this card is just really good as the second skill for the continuous beating skill. Its first skill is just in case you break, then you need to ride it, you still get something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Then obviously we play our Heal Guardian. So the reason why we play Heal Guardians in this deck is because we're gonna be doing a lot of top deck calling. Having this 10k body actually might not be the worst idea in the world. As well as also, of course, all the benefits of having Heal Guardians. You prevent early rush. You can slow down the pace of the game. You can prevent yourself from being OTK by DOTS, Gabriel, Valkyrie, and all the good stuff. So yeah, Heal Guard, especially for a deck that likes to call a lot of stuff in the early game, just having an emergency button in the Heal Guardian, which you can search out thanks to the Grade 3 searcher that was reprinted in this set, is very, very, very strong. Yeah.
Moving on to our grade 2s, you will notice a bit of a color trend in a bit, so I'm just going to point it out just a bit. We play 3 Sylvia, then we play 4 Saul, and we play 4 of, what's her name? Toru.
Yeah, so if you've been watching Kobayashi Dragon Maid, yeah, so good for you.
Name. Okay, so and in case it wasn't clear, I'm just going to point out, it's a little aesthetic thing.
Yeah.
These guys share the same art.
Yeah.
And these guys share the same art.
So these two are the 2 Legion bosses from the Legion era for Neo Nectar. So so it's honestly quite cute that we are playing both of them in the same deck again.
I'm glad that they really made it such that you could still play both together.
Yeah.
They could have just easily power crap one or the other.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's...
Sorry, Cecilia.
Alright, let's break it down real quick. This is when play spawn a plant token for absolutely free. That's it. You just get one of these little critters, it's just some plant thing.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it. It's a free +1. There's literally no argument against it. It's costless, it's free, it's a Musketeer. It's an old triple rare, but it's not expensive to my knowledge.
Yeah,
and it's a Musketeer.
It's okay.
So,
yeah, mainly you want her for the name as well as the free body on board. And then you can use skills like Vera, which requires you to sack 2. You can use Martina, which requires you to sack 1. So yeah, even though it's an on-play skill, and then she becomes a vanilla after that, you won't be keeping her on board for long because you can swap her out for better cards. You can filter that even better.
Okay, so that pretty much covered that card. Let's move on to the rest then. Yes. We'll start with the white color one.
So Peony Musketeer Toru is a very simple skill. It's when placed on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, you may Color Blast 1 and retire 1 card. You look at the top 3 cards of the deck. It's either you call 2 Musketeers or you call one generic unit that is not a Musketeer. So yeah, Neo Nectar actually has a lot of ways to spawn cards in the early game. So so long as you have 1 rear guard, if you ride her skill will always proc, then you're able to sack the blood token or any grade 1. We'll have a lot of quite good grade 1s to sack, as we'll show later on, and then she'll be able to spawn let's say a Saul and then a Martina, which is wrong color though.
Color brand.
Okay, so obviously, as you can see, you call a Martina on turn 2, you're telling your opponent that, hey, I'm going to attack you for a 15k guard for 2 crit, please guard. If your opponent cannot guard, then GG. Because, Musketeers, their rushing is just very, very...
Their board presence is insane. It's very free. And even if you encounter something like Eradicators to mow down the lawn just grows back. So
yeah, but then you might be telling yourself, hey, but then you have to put the cards at the bottom of the deck. So what if you see 3 triggers? Well, then there is a out now. If this was a month ago, I would have told you no, there's no way out of this. If you see a trigger, that's just too bad. But now there's actually an out to this, which is Lycoris Musketeer Saw. So Lycoris Musketeer Saw is, quite honestly, I think it is the standout star of this set for Musketeers, mainly due to the last part of his skill. So his skill is when on Vanguard Circle or Rearguard Circle, when placed, you Soul Blast 1 and you retire 1 card. So like I said, for the same thing as Toru, just have 1 card on the board on turn 2. On turn 2, then you sack it, then you can use his skill. So you search top 3, you only get to call 1 unit. So it doesn't have to be a Musketeer, but you just call 1 unit and then you call it to Rearguard Circle. If it was a trigger, it's not the end of the world because he has a second clause, which is that you Color Blast 1, and then you can activate all the trigger effects. Oh, so let's say you're at 5. You're at 5 damage and your opponent's at 5. You get to heal. You get a heal trigger. You get to heal 1. You see a PG. You get to draw 1 card. You never know. You may draw into your another extender. You may draw into your Toru. You never know.
That will explain the trigger ratio later.
But the most threatening one is obviously you get a crit. You can give the crit to the Vanguard. And if you remember from Vera's skill, Vera does not require the trigger to be shown in a drive check. So when Saul does his little song and dance, and you call a trigger, you'll be like, your opponent will be like, oh no, it's just you can only give it to 1 unit. No, you give the power to the entire front row, and you give the crit to 1 of your units, preferably the one that's not on the force 2, so that you can pressure for little on all columns.
So as you can see, crits are in abundance, really. They're either built in or you're just spawning crits to steal their skills. Yeah, it's really not that bad. Considering it's a 3-card set with, it's shocking how it's actually not a bad deck at all with just 3 cards. And
genuinely, I think Saul definitely has made this deck incredibly strong.
Alright. Yeah. So now moving on to our grade 1s, we obviously play for the Grade 3 Searcher. It has been reprinted.
Yes.
We play for Roof. We play 4 America, and we play 2
this is the Maiden of
Sweetberry?
Yeah, Sweetberry, yeah, correct.
Okay, so let's break it down real quick. This is your generic Grade 3 Searcher.
Her skill is that her skill to gain 5k is if you have a plant token on field, then she'll gain 5.
It's really that simple. It's a good 13k booster. It's a good searcher for your grade 3s, and you want your grade 3s. I don't have to explain. Then we move on to Merca.
Her skill is very simple as well. Is that when placed Soul Blast 1, and you create 1 plant token in the same column as her. So you cannot like, let's say like if your Vanguard, okay, let's say your Vanguard is like Vera, and then you call America here. You can't say, oh, I want to create the plant token here. No, you must create it in the same column. So, but she has circumvented it because her second skill says that when another unit is placed in front of her, she gains 3k. So it's an 11k. So it's an 11k booster. So even if it's a plant token or if it's another unit, so let's say it's a Martina, it's a 24k column. So you can even hit for even better numbers if you're double crit.
And to make matters even worse, that 3k is not
once per
turn. You can call on top of that spot and let her gain more power. Which of course is like, oh, it's 3k, What's 3k gonna do to hurt me, It's just 3k, What's 3k gonna do to hurt me?
It's just 3k.
Just 3k. But beyond that, really, you just need power, and it's a good first right target. It's a good card to have on the board. It's a Musketeer.
Yeah.
There's really not much.
And also, it fills your board very, very quickly, especially on turn 1. It's a very, very welcome addition to have.
Alright.
But the other standout star is Water Lily Musketeer Roof. So Roof skill is very simple. When you write this unit on Vanguard Circle, you can create 1 plant token. But if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 1 or grade 1, you get to create
grade higher.
Grade 1 or more, you get to create 2 plant token. So
in the early game, this really helps you go into second, or if for some reason they've reached grade 4. You are just gonna keep popping off to get these tokens freely. It's just that good. Even if you go first and you spawn 1 token, it's still not that bad. It's a free thing. But if you go second, you get 2, which is even better. So it kind of makes up for the losses you make by going second.
Yeah, but her best ability is that when she is retired on regular circle, or your other unit is retired on regular circle, you can counter charge 1. But then if another rearguard is retired, you have to also retire her as well.
So she nets herself back in order to get the counter.
So generally, you want to just retire her because you don't want to go into a -2. But in the scenario, you have to retire another rearguard. It's okay to retire her as well to get the counter charge. Because as you can see, we have a lot of cards in this deck that require counter blast.
And it cycles through pretty fast. So honestly, even if you sack it, you can just put it back to the deck.
And then with Vera's skill, you can also even cycle it back to the deck, so you can repeat this process again.
Yep. And lastly, we have
our only other non-musketeer in this deck, which is Maiden of Sweetberry. So Maiden of Sweetberry came about through some testing. Is that her Vanguard? Okay, so on Vanguard Circle, when Vanguard Circle or Rearguard Circle, when placed, you call 1 plant token. It's just that simple. You just call 1 plant token. You can call it to any circle you want. It's just that simple. But if your Vanguard is grade 3 or higher, you get to soul charge 1. So if you remember, we actually have those Saw. So Saw is a card that we're going to be using very, very often, as many times as we can, so that we can keep triggering off those triggers in the main phase, so that we can pump our field for as much power as we can. So we're going to be running out of Soul very fast, and Maiden of Sweet Berry just prevents us, from completely running out of Soul, and then we can't use the skill, and it'll be very sad for us. But her second skill is also pretty good, is that during your turn, if your opponent if your Vanguard is grade 3 or higher, she becomes a 13k booster. So 13k booster for Neo Nectar for cards that already hit for such high numbers is just an icing on top. Magic number can hit for higher numbers on early game is really good.
Alright, let's move on to the last part real quick. These are grade zeros. We play the Musketeer starter. We play,
I think it's Broccolini Musketeer Kira. Yes.
Play 8 crits for draw for Hill Guardians.
Okay, so this one, take note. Please remember to buy the Musketeer crit. His name is Daniel. He's been looking for a home for a very long time, and now it's the first time that actually, honestly, he finally has a home, which is because thanks to Saul, you can call a Musketeer. He has to Vera. She actually requires the Musketeer name, so yeah, it's very important that you have this card and not another crit trigger. But overall, I think it's not unexpected why we chose this trigger lineup, because PGs are PGs. No, if you want to run crit sentinels, it's also okay.
But we wanted the deck to run a bit better in terms of survivability. The crit really to help you cheese games. It helps, but honestly,
the draw power is also very strong, because sometimes you also just want to have the cards in hand. You don't want to have to rely on top decking them. So even though you have a lot of top deck searching and deck filtering, it's always just good to have cards in hand as well that you can play. Yeah, and that's about it.
So that wraps it up for our Musketeer deck profile. I know I keep saying this when it sounds repetitive, which are the better decks of VCall? Yes, I think this is one of them as well, because we're not covering Reggie on this channel. You'll never hear me actually say that, there is a very bad VCall deck. I mean, there are bad decks, but they're not that bad as Reggie. Is this deck, does it have flaws? Yes, it's a 3 attack deck, it still does rely on triggers here and there to cheese out the game. It's luck dependent, but then again, Musketeers have always been luck dependent because of their searching. But I think all in all, it's still not that bad. I think it's definitely a cheap deck to build for a very strong deck for that matter, because once you generally learn how the Musketeers work and what you can do with sacking and serial calling them back, it helps. It really helps. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's all. I think overall, this is definitely one of the breakout. I mean, definitely one of the sleeper hits of VCall. I think not a lot of people have given this deck a chance, because they say, it's just the same thing as what they've always done. But no, I think with these waves of support, they definitely added a lot more consistency and a lot more flair to the deck as well.
Yep. Alright, so that actually wraps up Musketeers. If you'd like us to cover any VCall decks that I, or more likely than not, Fate can afford, let us know in the comment section below. Or if you have a VCall deck you want it featured, you could, I don't know, maybe send me the pictures. I really don't know. I could do it. I don't know. But the next one is something that we do know. It is going to be Raging from Dragon. So keep a lookout for that. I'm gonna need a bit more time, because we are still testing it here between me and my different playtesters that I know. But yeah, keep that in mind. But that's pretty much it. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.